this edition of the Odds On Favorites podcast. We're talking sports, entertainment, all with an eye on the bottom line. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rick Rockwell and Taylor Smith. We are really close to the start of the college football season, guys. 2 conferences left to preview. This week, let's focus on the Pac-12. Show of hands, before doing research for this segment, who honestly remembered the Pac-12 championship game last year featured Washington beating Utah 10-3? Anyone? Really?
Liar. I wrote a preview on it. I wrote a game preview, a betting preview on it. I'm a Pac-12 guy. Big Ten, Pac-12 all the way.
So East Coast to West Coast. The Huskies, with losing a close Rose Bowl game to Ohio State on New Year's Day after that. The conference as a whole went just 3-4 in bowl games. Washington State, Stanford, and Oregon were the 3 winners, and they won their bowl games by a combined 4 points. Taylor, does any team jump out at you from the Pac-12 this season as a front runner, at least for a conference title?
Yeah, I think Washington has to be the front runner just kind of by default. They and Oregon look like the best teams in the North Division, I think, by a pretty decent margin. Anytime Oregon has a good quarterback, Justin Herbert. Anytime you have a guy like that, that's an NFL potential number 1 pick, you kind of stand out, especially in a weak division like that. Washington gets them at home, though. And I think just on balance of the entire schedule, Washington has an edge. They also get Washington State at home. Washington, I think, only has 2 defensive starters returning, which I think is kind of a red flag. But, just on balance of the whole schedule and just there's not much else there to like. So I think it comes down to really that Oregon-Washington game. I would take Washington right now. In the South, Utah looks like a pretty clear favorite. They have a pretty weak division overall. UCLA has 9 defensive starters coming back, so they could be a little improved, but there's not much else that stands out in that division either. So I could see a rematch here where I think Washington would be just kind of by default the favorite.
I'm going with Oregon. I think the Ducks are going to return to prominence this year. Herbert is going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. He looks like a stud. He's tall, he's athletic, he's got a strong arm. He can move around in the pocket. He's finally the quarterback they've been wanting and needing for the last couple of years to run that offense. I have a lot of concerns with Washington on offense and defense. I think they've lost too much leadership on both sides. If Oregon stumbles, though, Washington still has enough talent to potentially take that part of the Pac-12. In terms of the South, I don't see any team being a playoff contender in the nation. In fact, the only team I see being a playoff contender is Oregon, and that is based on how well their quarterback plays. They're known for being a team that scores a lot, goes up and down the field. So defense isn't something they have to be as concerned about, but they are bringing back some talent on the defensive side of the ball, which should help, especially if they get into a track meet with other teams. Maybe their defense outplays the other defense. I'm not concerned about Washington as much, or even Washington State. I think both of them lost too much in terms of quarterback play. They lost their leadership from the quarterback position. Justin Herbert is going to be the best quarterback in the Pac-12, in my opinion. And I think that's going to be the difference. In that system, they'll put up 30-plus points a game on average. They'll blow out teams. They'll win the style points. They'll move up the ranks. I don't know if they can make it to the playoffs, but if there's any team in that conference that has a chance, I got to go with them.
I do agree that if there's a team that's going to make the playoff, it's going to be Oregon, but I don't know that they're even the front runner to win their division. I just think that in order for a team from the Pac-12 to be able to go 11-1 and make the playoff, you have to have the name recognition. Washington at 11-1, Utah at 11-1 would not get a bid over Georgia or a number 2 from the SEC or an Oklahoma or a Big Ten champion. So that's where I agree with you. But Washington does have a very solid quarterback, at least what we think. We haven't seen him play with the Huskies yet. Jacob Eason, transfer had to sit out a year, redshirt junior. They had a really good team last year. Oregon does have that great offensive line. They've got a fantastic quarterback. I agree Herbert is probably the best quarterback in the Pac-12. The South is bad aside from Utah. And the Utes do have a few pieces. They've got a quarterback and a running back, both returning from injury. I think they missed the last 4 or 5 games of the season. Tyler Huntley at QB, Zach Moss at running back. Their head coach strong, Kyle Whittingham. So I think that Utah comes out of the South. I don't think that we're in a situation where these teams are going to be – this is going to be the conference for the third straight year that gets left out of the college football playoff. I just don't see a path for – I don't see Oregon being good enough to go 12-0, and I don't see any of the other teams like I don't think Oregon's going to go 11-1 or 12-0. They might win 9 or 10, but that's probably about where they are. And the other teams are going to have to run the table if they want a shot at the playoff, because non-traditional schools don't get let into the college football playoff with even really good years. You have to be perfect, and even then, sometimes they leave you out for another team from the SEC. So Oregon's the only one that I think has even a remote path, and I don't think they're going to be on it. Taylor,
I think any team – sorry.
I was going to bring you in on it because you wanted to talk about the playoff.
Well, I think any team out of the Pac-12 is going to have to go undefeated, even Oregon. So, just because of the quality of the other teams in the other conferences. We know Clemson's making it. We know Alabama's making it. Probably a Big 12 team, Oklahoma, maybe Texas, maybe a second SEC team like Georgia. Then you have Michigan and Ohio State in the Big 10. So there's just too much other quality for a one-loss or two-loss Pac-12 team to get in, I think. I do agree with your big-name argument about Oregon. If there is one Pac-12 team that could potentially get in with a loss, it's them. I just don't know that they would still. Like, would they take an 11-1 Oregon team that wins the conference over, Oklahoma with the same record in the Big 12? I doubt it. So I really do think they'd have to go undefeated, and I can't see any of those teams actually going undefeated. So I think there's a pretty slim chance. If there's anyone, it's Oregon or Washington, but I don't think any of them get in.
I
agree. I don't see getting in either. But I do like Oregon's quarterback. And in a system where quarterback play is key to making a run, at least to winning your conference or to the playoffs, they at least have that component where really nobody else in the Pac-12 has a quarterback that's even being talked about as a potential Heisman candidate, save maybe Utah's quarterback because he's dual threat.
Well, this is not related to the Pac-12, but we do have to mention this because this sparked up on Twitter yesterday, a day before we were recording this. We have to mention Ohio State's quest to trademark the word "the," as in the three-letter word that I've already used 2 or 3 times to this point in this little phrase. There is so much to unpack with this, so many different directions to take. Taylor, go, I guess, because I don't really know how to set up any better than that.
It's just a very Ohio State thing to do. Like, it seems like they just live to kind of annoy everyone that doesn't like them. It's also not their first foray into this. They've tried to trademark Woody Hayes in the past, Urban Meyer as well. They've trademarked Script Ohio and The Shoe to put on merchandise. It's just, I don't know. It's very them to want to put "the" in big block letters on a shirt or a hat, and it's very their fans who actually want to consume these products and potentially spend money on a shirt that just says "the" on the front. So it's not the most shocking thing to happen. It's nauseating. It's Ohio State, but I can't say I'm surprised.
This is just one more reason why I can't freaking stand Ohio State. I'm a Penn State fan, grew up in State College, went to Penn State, always going to be a blue and white fan, but I can't stand Ohio State. Even taking my bias aside, when you have things like this, when you have the controversies with Urban Meyer and their coaching staff, and just you go back over the years over the different scandals or so-called incidences off the field, it just drives you crazy. It's like, here's a program that just runs wild whenever they want. And then they have the audacity to believe they can go trademark one of the most common words in the history of English language. If that's the case, like, I'm coming up with a list. I want pizza, I want football, I want sports betting. Like, I'm going to start trying to trademark all of these and seeing if one sticks. Because if Ohio State can get "the" or "the," if they can get either one of them, I got to be getting something too.
I think there's a distinction. I honestly do. And I say this because I grew up in South Florida. I went to Florida State. But when I grew up, I pulled from Miami because I grew up in South Florida. And I had a shirt 20 years ago that literally said "the U." It had the University of Miami U logo, and it said THE above it. Now, for Miami, it's the, but for Ohio State, it's the. So I wonder if there is a legal distinction because, I mean, to start a clothing line, that would be the clothing line, and just put the across the front, THE. It's not putting the across the front. I wonder if there's a distinction with that. Because
at least the U is unique.
The U, but they're not trying to trademark the letter U. And if they did, that would be unbelievably hilarious. But I do also.
They're not as obnoxious as Ohio State to try and trademark a letter.
What I do like is I like Michigan's response. Their social media team posted a giant block letter of trademark because they are U of M. And it's the whole idea of trademarking a word that is so common, because I do get that it's associated with the Ohio State University and in the context of Ohio State University. Okay, but I mean, if the Saints were unable to really win their deal with who dat because the fans kind of came up with it, I can't see Ohio State winning with the.
They tried to trademark OSU a couple of years ago, and Oklahoma State spoke up and fought them on it, and they eventually agreed just to both go by OSU. So they've lost before in these kind of battles. Hopefully they lose again.
It's funny because I don't think you have to trademark it for something to be associated with it. Oklahoma State to me is always OK State. In the same way that Southern Cal is USC and South Carolina is USC East, if you want to even abbreviate it. I'm pretty sure Gamecocks fans hate that. The idea of USC and then a little E at the end. It's like it's an electric car or something. But yeah, that whole thing is just very random and very Ohio State. I hope you enjoyed that segment from the Odds On Favorites podcast. If you did, there's plenty more where that came from. Click on the link on your screen now to be taken to the complete podcast from this week, or check out the channel to find the other individual segments. And make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel for plenty more sports and sports betting picks, tips, and how-to guides.